Welcome to Busyness and Burnout, the podcast where we navigate life's chaos, manage burnout, and thrive sustainably. I'm Sine Lewis, an entrepreneur, professor, yoga teacher, and your guide through the highs and lows of living a full, busy life. I'm not here to tell you I've got it all figured out. I'll share real stories, practical tools, and candid conversations to help us all find balance together. Because life is busy, burnout is real, and thriving takes intention. If you're ready to redefine busyness and to build a life you love, hit follow now and let's get started. All right, let's take a moment just to be here. Maybe close your eyes, take a deep breath in, check in with yourself, exhale. How are you feeling in this moment? Are you running around? Are you listening to this in the car, on a walk, at home? What do you need right now in this moment? Are you able to give it to yourself? Or do you have to wait for a later time? Deep inhale. Exhale. Welcome, y'all. Hope you're having a great day. So last episode, we talked about recognizing burnout and just what does it mean to be busy, right? And burned out and how we respond. So how we respond. Initially, I was going to talk about time management today, and we still might talk about time management. Ultimately, it all comes down to that, but that last episode, while it may seem like it was a week ago, was actually recorded 3 months ago. And that's where your time management comes in actually. So we might actually want to talk about time management, tell you the truth. But if you haven't listened to that episode 1, go back and listen. I share what burnout looks like in my life and how I started to notice the signs and what it is that we know it is and what to do next. So welcome to Business and Burnout. I'm Sine. If you're looking for a space to exhale, reflect, and have conversations about life, real conversations, doing all the things and how burnout weaves its way through it all, you're in the right place. So as I said, the last episode was recorded. Honestly, I can't even tell you. I think it's June now. I think the episode was recorded. Honestly, I can't even tell you, months ago, right? And at the height of me being in school and teaching classes and trying to get through the semester while trying to do client work. And I've always said that while I really want to do this podcast, I don't want to do it at the cost of burnout itself. Like, it really would be ironic to burn myself out trying to do this podcast talking about burnout. So I decided to take a break and put it on the back burner, which, at this point, this podcast has been a two-year endeavor, but I've come to realize that time is its own thing and time is actually not real, right? And I have on nobody's timeline except for my own, and the same thing for you, right? Where you are is exactly where you need to be. And I think a lot of times when we get caught up in the busyness, and like I said, for me, I love doing all the things. I had to realize that doing all the things doesn't mean I have to do all the things at the same time, right? So this is actually where that time management comes in, right? And actually the truth is that you can't actually manage time. You cannot manage time. Time is going to move whether you like it or not. Again, it's not real. We make it up. But you can manage your focus, your energy, your boundaries, and your expectations. So when I say for this podcast, I had the expectation initially I was going to put it out a while ago. It's been in my heart for a while just because I really feel like this is something, especially in the time where we as society, we have to do more, be more to get half as far, right? And there's some thoughts around that itself. But just the idea of how do you do what you love and still be happy without stressing yourself out? Is that possible? Me personally, as someone who's experienced and who has lain in bed with burnout, we've become best friends. I also know people who have never experienced burnout, who I will have on this podcast as a conversation because I want to know all about that. But what does it mean to manage your time, manage yourself, manage your intention versus time, actually? And with this endeavor, this is a passion project for me. So that means that I am not necessarily, it's not priority for me. It's priority that I get the information out and I share with y'all, but not at the cost of everything else that I do, right? So when it comes to managing my focus, one thing that I love doing, I live by, is my schedules, right? Before I tried to do everything at the same time, that's when I felt very overwhelmed. I felt like I didn't know what was coming next. It wasn't until I switched to scheduling and time blocking that really kind of changed my life and changed how I look at things, because being honest with myself allows me to say, if I want to do something, does my schedule allow for it? Right? So during the school year, I teach 3 classes. Over the last couple semesters, it's changed how I teach. I used to teach twice a week for each class. Now I teach once a week, which means I have a little bit more time, but it's different when I teach 3 days a week, because typically, even though it's 3 days, 1 class a day, those 3 hours I'm teaching really requires more, because now I have to think about post class, office hours. So really I have 3 days gone while trying to juggle my client work and trying to teach my yoga classes as well. And also being an artist. I got back into my painting this year, which is also, that became important to me. But so of course I wouldn't have time to add podcasts to my schedule unless I wanted to not sleep. And sleep has been priority for me. My health has been priority to me actually this year. So me saying yes to my health means saying yes to my sleep, meant saying not right now to this podcast. But now that school is out and we're in the summertime, I have more capacity for this passion project. Also knowing that into the fall, my schedule is going to be very different than what it was last semester and previous anyway. So I have be able to hopefully continue on. So me scheduling things into my calendar and not saying yes to anything until I look at my calendar really helped me figure out what actually deserves my attention. Now, the other side of that is, do I have the energy and capacity to actually do it? So we talk about time and we talk about attention, but we don't ever really talk about energy. So think of it like a triangle, right? So on the one point you have time, how many hours do you have to actually do something, versus your intention, point in triangle, what I am mentally capable to focus on. Then on the other part of that is our energy. What can I physically and emotionally do? So this morning, actually, I was talking to my therapist and I was telling her how, mentally, I feel really aware. I feel like I want to be able to do something. So my attention is there. However, energy-wise, my body was like, let's get back in bed. Let's get back in bed. However, I had a yoga class I had to go teach, which meant that I needed to get a Celsius. And actually, I do Alani. This is not sponsored, but they need to sponsor me. How much I buy these things. I needed energy to be able to get through something that I was mentally focused on. By the time the class is over, I feel great. I feel great right now. But take a moment just to think about times where you wanted to do something, but physically you were not able to. You just didn't have the energy, those times when you're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym today, but then you just don't get out of bed. So take a moment to ask yourself, what drains your energy, even if it doesn't take a lot of time. So whether it's doom scrolling or thinking about clients that are not very energetic for you, or even back-to-back meetings. I know for me, emails is a huge energy drainer for me. So I avoid them at all costs until I have to they pile up and then I gotta get to it. But are there any times where thinking about your time, your attention, and your energy, where you may be lacking in one, So let's say a lot of times for me, when burnout typically happens, when I have the attention and I have the energy, but I don't have the time, but I try and convince myself I have the time, and then I start overdoing it, and then my energy starts to go, and then my intention, next thing you know, I'm spiraling, right? Or, do you have times when you have the time and the energy, but you can't mentally focus? That may be a time on the weekend where you want to do something and emotionally and physically you're there, but you didn't have a long week and now mentally you're checked out, right? Your attention's not there. So it's important to understand that when we think about time management, it's also attention management. It's also energy management. They work together. How you manage your attention is the start of how you reclaim your peace. How you manage your energy is the start of how you reclaim your peace. Time is literally the only thing that you cannot control. You can control your intention, you can control your energy. And it's not something, I say this as someone who, it's a constant growth, it's a constant practice, right? So it's always not striving for perfection, but just striving for trying to be better. How you manage your attention will help you manage your energy. You can't control the time, but you can control the other two. And sometimes energy wise, it's a little bit harder to deal with, but the attention wise, we can focus a little bit more. So rather than trying to juggle all three, you focus on one, the other two will follow along. Some practices that I use to manage my attention, first, like I mentioned, being more on my schedule, making sure my schedule is on point. I don't agree to anything unless my schedule is conferred. We want to make sure I have the availability to be able to do what I say I want to do or being asked to do. A huge thing that I like to do is think back to the Eisenhower Matrix. Some of you may have seen this when you were in high school or seen variations of this, but the Eisenhower Matrix, it gives you the comparison versus of what is urgent versus important, right? A lot of times we have things that are brought to us or have things that are on our list that seem so important and seem so urgent, but really aren't. They really aren't. If it's urgent and important, it's crisis mode. It got to get done immediately. That's like, I need to eat right now, right? That needs to, whatever's your priority. If something is due tomorrow, then yeah, that'll be urgent and important. But then there's also things that are urgent that aren't important, right? And usually this might be things from other people, right? A lot of times other people's emergencies tend to fall upon us. Sometimes it becomes off as a distraction, because if it's urgent but it's not important, is it really priority? Why is it urgent? A lot of times it's just asking yourself why. Like, why is this urgent? Do you need to do it now? If it's important but not urgent, we have more time to plan for it. So important but not urgent means that, let's say semester starts in 2 months, so I need to start planning for the semester. That is important, but it's not urgent right now because I have 2 months. Now, if I were to wait until August 1 to start planning, now we have urgent and important, then I got to plan three classes out in a whole couple weeks. So it allows you time to properly plan your schedule, right? If something is not urgent and not important, why are we doing it? A lot of times the things that we say that are important and that say we're urgent are really not. Are really not. We really think about it, really, will this, and honestly, there's very few things that are urgent and important, for real. It's just perception. If it will not kill you, if it will not end the world tomorrow, it is not urgent and important. It might be important, but not urgent, right? Now, some things, again, things that are not urgent or not important, only you can really decide what that is, but we don't need to be doing it. So that's the Eisenhower Matrix. I love the Eisenhower Matrix. Another good thing in terms of managing my attention, rather than thinking about my to-do list and the things on my to-do list as an overall list, I like to think about what is the next action items. For those of you who've ever ran across my blog, I always talk about, I like to throw in action items that you can do immediately. So on my list, I used to have, let's say I have a client, Jane, working on a website project, and I say that, okay, on my list, literally putting Jane website project, if that's all that's on my list, that website project, the likelihood of me working on it that day is very slim, because now my mind has to think about what exactly do I need to do, right? So I like to think of the next action item. It's called different things depending on who talks about it, but that will allow you to think, what is the least common denominator of action that I can do right now to move this forward? So let's say, Jane, I'm working on the website. Is the website being built right now? No. So maybe if we're in phase 1 where we're collecting information and making sure we have the text, it may be, do I need to follow up with Jane versus me thinking about building the whole website? So even though we plan for the future, what can we do right now to get us one more step? I can't build the site until I have the information. If I don't have the information, I need to reach out to Jane as my next step to make sure that she's okay. She has any questions? How do we move forward? So what is the next action item? How this was explained to me and how I really processed it was, a coach was talking to a client about cleaning out her house or changing up her house. And she wanted to paint the walls of her living room. However, she had all this stuff in her living room. And so the coach is asking her, okay, so what do you need to do? What do we need to do first? And she's like, oh, well, I need to go and buy the paint. And the coach is like, okay, well, if you buy the paint, will you be able to paint the room? She's like, oh no, because there's stuff in the room. So she's like, okay, well, I need to go and move the stuff out of the space. But then before I move the stuff out of the space, I have to make sure that I have space to move the stuff. Okay, so then you got to make sure you have the space. So do you have the space? Oh no, I need to go make room in my garage to move the space. Oh, well, how are you going to clear the garage out? Oh, actually, I need to move my car. So the first step to painting the room, moving the car. You cannot move the items that are in the current room until you have the space, but you can't have space until you make it. So what is the next action on your list to be able to do what you need to do? If you can think about it like that, it's a huge game changer in terms of your attention and managing what you can mentally do. It's the idea of, I know it sounds weird, but eating the elephant, right? You can't eat an elephant all at one time, but you can eat an elephant bite by bite. So the larger monster task that you need to do is really one bite at a time. So there's way more. We'll talk about more throughout our episodes, but I just want to give you those two, thinking about your Eisenhower Matrix as well as your next actionable item or your next item or your action items, how you want to call it, to do. So one thing I want to kind of bring up, especially as it relates to the Eisenhower Matrix and our action items, when we're thinking about the things that are being brought to us to do, add to the list, consider what's on your plate versus what you're actually hungry for. As someone who, like I said, I thrive on being busy, but when I used to be busy, think about busy differently, I think it was more so out of the commitment of fear, me overcommitting because I wanted to do all the things. I had the fear of missing out. I had the fear of disappointing others. I had the fear of not making money. Like, especially as a business owner, I want to make sure that I can pay my bills. I always used to say I fear being homeless. So I would fill my plate up to the point where not only was it uncomfortable to eat, but I couldn't handle it all. The plate would literally just drop because I couldn't handle it. So rather than thinking about how we can fill our plate up, think about more so internally, what are you actually hungry for that's going to feed you and help you thrive? So am I saying yes to things on my plate because other people, right? Or am I saying yes because I actually want to do this and I understand it's going to help me in my goals? If you picture your plate like a dinner plate at a buffet, I grew up in New Orleans, so we used to go to Ryan's and Golden Corral all the time after church on Sundays, and you get to choose what you want on your plate. You get to choose if you want to make it full, make it overflowing. You can go up and get as much as you want on that first round, and of course some of it looks good. Out of habit, you may add more, or you may look at someone else and see you add it to your plate. But do you actually like half the stuff? You get back to your seat and you're like, oh, I'm gonna eat half this plate. You can always, and this is where I say at the beginning that being busy is not about really being busy. It's about understanding what can you do now? What can you do later? What can you put on your plate now that you actually want to eat? What can you put on your plate later that you want to come back to? And understanding this helps you with that Eisenhower Matrix. What is important now? What is important later? Understanding this helps you understand priorities and your next actionable item. What can you do now to help you eat the whole plate? So maybe if I want to make sure I can actually enjoy my meal, I may right now take greens. I may take a salad. I may take chicken or shrimp or whatever it may be. And then next round, go back for more. Whether it's more chicken or more salad or something different. Because again, your plate can change. Your plate doesn't have to be the same thing every time. It's just right now, you can only eat one thing. So why we fill our plates, again, I'm going to kind of circle back here. Why we fill our plates too much? Fear of lack. If I don't take it all now, I'll miss it out later. Will it still be there? I've definitely seen this on my own journey. Like I said, there's times when I have been trying to do everything because I want to make sure that my bills are paid, or I don't want to miss out because what if a client doesn't come back, or what if the opportunity is gone? What's for you is for you. Your client is for you or not, honestly, at the end of the day. Or pleasing others, doing things because I should do them because I don't want to do them, thus leading to procrastination because I should do it and I don't want to do it, meaning it's not that important to me and I'm just dragging it out. Are you saying yes because it aligns with your goals, or because you don't want to disappoint anyone, thus leading to disappointment? Sometimes even the productivity illusion. So looking busy to make you feel accomplished, but are you actually making progress? Now, I'm going to say that there's two sides to this, because progress is not linear. And sometimes, we want to be busy as if we are making progress, and we want to progress. It's funny because a couple of years ago, when the whole idea of being busy became a negative connotation, like you just want to be busy to be busy, want to be busy to make progress. And so now it's like, oh, we're being progressive, making progress and progress and progress. But even that then became just another word of busy. So sometimes you can be busy in a positive way and still not make progress. What happens when you hit a plateau? Sometimes you need to be at the plateau to learn there and then move forward. But the productivity illusion, where it's more so for others putting on the front because I'm so busy. Listen, it's not that serious. I know, I say this with a grain of salt, but looking and sometimes trying to put on the front to feel accomplished because maybe you've hit a plateau, or maybe you feel like you're not making steps, but you want to be perceived as if you are moving forward. Sometimes in life, you don't move forward. And that's okay. Running in circles, around and around, and You just frustrate yourself out because you're on a hamster wheel. And sometimes to get off the wheel is to stop and get off the wheel. And a lot of times we don't want to do that because we don't want to look bad. We don't want to look a certain way. I've been in business for, like I said, almost 15 years now. And the biggest change for me was when I paused so I can focus on my systems, focus on my intention of what I actually wanted to do versus trying to keep going because that's what I thought other people wanted to see. And it took me a minute to get there because feeling like, oh, I'm falling behind or whatever it may be. But if I'm constantly just focusing on the work itself, but not focusing on business building activities, I'm not moving forward anyway. So sometimes it's not doing anything or slowing yourself down to actually make that progress that you're trying to make. And it took me a while to get there. Like I said, literally, almost 15 years in business. It took me like 12 to learn. And that's okay. Because again, time is a construct. And then sometimes we fill our plates because we just default habits. We've been conditioned by society to keep going, to push, especially in American society, to keep pushing, to add the same tasks to our week, our routine because they still serve us. Or we think that they still serve us, they really don't. If you're doing something that you did 10 years ago, the likelihood of it serving you still is very slim. So just think about that. Just think about the things that you do on a default basis. What are you saying yes to constantly that you're still saying yes to years later? Is it still serving you? Or is it yes because you're so used to saying yes and the people have come to rely on you about being the yes person? Just a few questions for you as you've taken everything that we've just talked about, or rather I've just talked about because you can't talk back. Feel free to leave a comment or something. But what's actually nourishing you right now? What's just a filler, taking up space but not adding value? If you had a clear plate and fresh start, what would you intentionally add back? What's on your plate that someone else handed to you? Is there anything on your plate now that you can set to the side to come back to once you've eaten a bit? I invite you to literally write this down, 2 columns. What's on my plate now? What am I actually hungry for? You don't have to eat everything on your plate just because it's there. You're allowed to go back for seconds later. You're allowed to leave things off entirely. Like I said, this podcast has been 2 years in the making. I recorded the very first episode actually a year ago. And I scrapped it. And then I recorded the first episode again a couple months ago with the intention of putting it out there the next week. But it didn't happen, and that's okay. It didn't need to be on my plate at that time. Now I'm in a whole different space. How I think about burnout, how I think about being busy is even different than how I thought about it 2 years ago. I'm looking forward to hearing y'all's stories. I'm looking forward to, because again, as I tell my students in class, my point of view is only one point of view. So the conversation really starts when you get to hear other people's. So tag me or DM me. What are you actually hungry for in this season of life? And final thoughts, what's on your schedule today? Can you move, shift, or release? I encourage you this week, as you think about the things that you want to be busy with, that gives you passion and allows you to thrive, what can you say no to? Say no to something this week. Can you block off 1 hour of creative time to be busy on something that you're passionate about? Can you think about, look at your to-do list, can we outline our action items? What is actually next? So that's all I got for you today. Hopefully this has been something for you. I'll let you include whatever the something is. I will see y'all next week or next time. Let's say next time. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Busyness and Burnout. I hope you found something valuable to take away and apply to your busy life. If you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit that follow button so you never miss a new one. And while you're at it, I'd love for you to leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It helps more people discover the show and join us on this journey. If you need more support, there are resources waiting for you over on my website at busynessandburnout.com. You'll find action items, tools, and extra insights to help you thrive without burning out, or at least help you to recover and be sustainable. Thanks again for spending your time with me, and I can't wait to chat with you again. Take care of yourself and keep thriving.